presented with the Maria Morse Cabot Prize for Journalism. It is precisely this facet of his life that is relevant for the study of India in Costa Rica. Since 1919 and up to his demise in 1958, he served as editor of the journal Repertorio Americano, American Repertoire, which was dedicated to the diffusion of national and international culture in the country. Among the publications of prominent Latin American authors, such as the Argentinian writer Victoria Ocampo, there was also space for Indian masterminds, such as Vyasa. In fact, volume 10, number 14 from 1925, featured Savitri, episode from the Mahabharata, a Spanish version of this well-known Upakhana. It was sold to Konrad Freundlich, a linguistics professor from the National University of Córdoba, Argentina. This publication is a reprint of an article that appeared in the journal from this university a year earlier. Moreover, in yet another token of the effervescent intellectual milieu in early 20th century Latin America, Garcia Monge commissioned a second Costa Rican reprint of this Savitri Upakhana in the Regal Press, of which he was editor as well. As a donation to the library of the University of Costa Rica, this became the first book on Sanskrit literature in the country. However, during these early stages, India's greatest cultural input in Costa Rica was without a doubt owed to Rabindranath Tagore. In 1914, volume 9, number 122 of the journal Pandemonium offered a 2-page note on Rabindranath Tagore, Hindu poet. This was the title of the article, which, after announcing his worldwide recognition for the 1913 Nobel Prize in Literature, provided the Costa Rican audience with what was probably the first look at the long-standing literary tradition of India, in the form of 2 brief poems entitled Las Flores, the Flowers, and El Silencio de la Belleza, the Silence of Beauty. Other contributors to the Costa Rican culture during the early stages of the 20th century were Omar Dengo Guerrero and Emma Gamboa Alvarado. On account of time, I'm not going to read about this, but I hope this will be available in some sort of published version for you to later consult it. So I'm going to skip a little ahead in time and talk about Hilda Chenapuy, whom was already mentioned by the panelists. Professor Hilda Chenapuy lived from 1923 and up to 2017, and she is widely considered as the true founder of Indian studies in Costa Rica. The daughter of a Chinese immigrant, she gravitated towards Asian cultures from a very young age. After studying education at the University of Costa Rica, art history at Mount Holyoke College, and literature at the University of Iowa, she went on to specialize in Indian art and culture at the Banaras Hindu University. After that, she studied Indian history and Sanskrit language at the College of Mexico, and she continued to focus on Sanskrit at the Universities of Cambridge and Amsterdam. She also completed several research travels to Southeast and East Asia, which were funded either by UNESCO or by government organizations. For instance, the former supported her trips to India from 1956 to 1957, and again in 1968. And the Indian Council for Cultural Relations aided her visits to India in 1975, 82, 83, and 89. Chenapuy worked as a teacher at the University of Costa Rica from 1948 to 1984. Her ample background made it possible for her to inaugurate almost single-handedly Indian studies in several faculties, schools, and departments. She taught courses on Sanskrit language and literature at the School of Philology, courses on Indian history at the School of History and Geography, courses on Indian art at the School of Plastic Arts, and courses on Hindu and Buddhist mysticism at the School of Philosophy. She also taught courses on modern and contemporary Asia at the Postgraduate Studies System at the University of Costa Rica and at the Foreign Service Institute Manuel Maria de Peralta of the Ministry of Cultural Affairs. Since 1968, when coordinator of the branch of classical studies Clara Corneli Marocchi and director of the Department of Philology Arturo Agüero Chavez first invited Chenapuy to open courses on Sanskrit, The University of Costa Rica has had an uninterrupted tradition of 55 years teaching this Indian classical language in Central America. Among Chen Apui's numerous publications, one can cite, and this is just to name a few of her contributions to the field: Historical Cultural Importance of the Civilizations of the Far East, The Image of Buddha in India and in China, The Veiled Face of India, Rabindranath Tagore, Oriental Studies at the University of Costa Rica. This is a paper from 1973 published in Mexico. Symbolism and Aesthetics in Indian Art, Evolution of the Figure of Buddha in India and Chinese Sculpture, Khmer People under Art, Buddhist Art in China and Japan, The Message of Buddha and its Artistic Expression in India, Nationalism and Art in Contemporary India, and the Integration of the Study of Asia and Africa in the Programs of the University of Costa Rica. This was published in 1983 in Colombia. One could be tempted to assume that her greatest contribution to Sanskrit studies in the Spanish-speaking world is her translation of Jan Honda's A Concise Elementary Grammar of the Sanskrit Language, which was published in 1982 at the College of Mexico, and which guided various generations, the author of these lines included, through their first steps towards understanding Sanskrit. In her prologue, Chen Apui herself acknowledges this by saying, and I quote, "The logical form in which the author explains the various grammatical elements and the excellent complements that are the exercises, the selected texts and the glossary, it all makes this handbook a valuable instrument, not only for those who wish to know the fundamentals of the Indian classical language as a basis for their study of the culture of the subcontinent, but also for the linguist, to whom this grammar will be very useful. For those reasons, the publication in Spanish of the book will help students in Latin America and Spain get started with a vast and rich worldview." End quote. However, it is also her who, lucidly reinterpreting the words of her teacher Vasudeva Saran Agrawala, confesses a greater purpose in her lifelong work. In an almost autobiographical collection of her essays, appropriately entitled, according to her goals, De la vida, el amor y la amistad, on life, love, and friendship, and entitled also according to her legacy, Un puente entre culturas, a bridge between cultures, Chen Apui lets the younger generations into what she considers to be the secret that there is more to life than forms, and that it is the spirit which transcends. Here I quote from this collection of her essays. She says, "Throughout the years, I have reflected several times upon the messages of my professor that are engraved in my memory. The inner path traveled since that very first trip to India has meant to me a constant study of that culture, and thus I have been able to understand the step beyond the forms and toward the spirit of said millenary culture. Preman, Shanti, Ananda, and Mukti have been the inspiration in my life." End quote. Lastly, and following on Chen Apui's footsteps, is her pupil, Sol Arguello Escriva, who was my professor back in Costa Rica. After working as Chen Apui's assistant from 1976 to 1982, Arguello Escriva graduated in '84 from classical philology at the University of Costa Rica, where she also obtained in 2014 a master's degree in classical literature. In both cases, she opted for specializing in India. Like her mentor, she has made significant contributions in terms of education and outreach, not only working as a professor of Sanskrit language and literature at the university level, but also volunteering for many years as a teacher of Latin and Spanish at the institute and high school levels. Likewise, her commitment to the study of India in Costa Rica has resulted in her being invited abroad to the University of Extremadura, Salamanca, the University of Kolkata, and the Institute Cervantes in Delhi. This was back in 2011. Arguello Escriva worked as a teacher at the University of Costa Rica from '84 to 2018. Out of the numerous branches of knowledge in which her predecessor established Indian studies, she was appointed to carry the torch in the field of philology. Not only did she continue to teach the courses on Sanskrit language and literature at the undergraduate and graduate levels, but she also created a new course on Indian mythology, and she went on to become a renowned specialist in Rabindranath Tagore and the reception of his work in Latin America. Among her publications, this is also just to give you a taste of what has been done in Costa Rica on these subjects. I'm going to cite the titles. Sanskrit Language, Arrival and Permanence in Costa Rica. This was published in Costa Rica in 1989. Savitri and the Female Figure in the Epic Sanskrit Literature. Rabindranath Tagore at the University of Costa Rica. This was published in Japan in 2001. Woman/Tradition in the Story The Funeral Pyre of Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore and His Ideals on Education. Tagore and Latin America, Some Considerations. This was published in 2011 in Mumbai. The Pertinence of Sanskrit Teaching in the Curriculum of Classical Philology. From Sanskrit to Spanish, Remote Loanwords and Adequations. The Animal Fable in Sanskrit, Greek and Latin Literary Traditions. A comparison between a fable of Phaedrus and one of Vishnu Sharman. Costa Rica as a chapter on the reception of Rabindranath Tagore. This was published 2013 in Hyderabad. Damayanti, From Victim to Heroine, or Proof of Loyalty. Permanence of female images of epic texts in India. The symbolism of the serpent in the fable, The Frogs That Ride the Serpent of Panchatantra. And this was the field in which she was carrying out her work near her retirement. The educational thinking of Rabindranath Tagore in two of the greatest Costa Rican educators, Omar Dengo and Joaquin Garcia Monge. So this brief overview finishes the first section of my paper. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to present at least a little bit of the other two, and as I said, I hope this will be available through some other source. But speaking about the present, what is being done now at the University of Costa Rica in terms of teaching, research, and outreach related to the study of India. So I'm going to mention that on October 31st, 2018, the auditorium Joaquin Garcia Mangel, named after a Costa Rican writer, author of the novel Popori, welcomed researchers, students, and enthusiasts alike to commemorate 50 years of Sanskrit teaching in Costa Rica. The University of Costa Rica offers 15 courses related to the academic study of India. Of these, 12 correspond to the undergraduate level. These are the courses Basic Sanskrit 1 and 2, Intermediate Sanskrit 1 and 2, Advanced Sanskrit 1 and 2, Sanskrit Literature, Indian Mythology, Rabindranath Tagore and his work, Introduction to Hindu and Buddhist Mysticism, Indian Art, and Buddhist Art. The remaining 3 courses are part of a postgraduate program, so Gods and Goddesses of India, a journey through Hindu iconography, The Fable, Theory and Tradition in India and the West, Sanskrit Literary Genres, the Mahabharata. All of them are taught in Spanish. The courses on language and literature, as well as those on Indian mythology and Rabindranath Tagore, are taught at the Department of Classics, which belongs to the School of Philology, Linguistics and Literature.